Now, one thing I'm curious to hear your thoughts on. You mentioned how Spence was so celebrated early on. One reason was he had a very good sparring session reportedly with Floyd Mayweather. How do you think Terence Crawford at 147 would have looked against Floyd Mayweather last night at his best when you covered him?
Well, that's a completely different fight, all right, because Spence has been given to believe that he's every bit as good an offensive fighter as Terence Crawford or anybody else that he's going to be in with. So he learned something different Saturday night. But Floyd Mayweather never disabused himself of the understanding that he was a more of a backup counterpuncher than a go-forward counterpuncher, regardless of what he did to Diego Corrales, and that's a different kind of approach and effect than what Crawford achieved the other night. So that a Floyd Mayweather beatdown or one-sided win was much more of a paint job than what Crawford put together. As Crawford demonstrated, if in fact I didn't see it, he was holding his crotch and making a signal,
No, he
holding
didn't.
up Errol Spence's head.
No, he signaled to his crotch and basically said to Charlo, "You're next." But I'm saying it was almost as if he had Spence's head, in his. He didn't literally do that motion, but yeah, it was.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying,
Right.
and Terence knows the language of the street as well as any other fighter.
But who would you have favored, Floyd Mayweather at 47 versus Terence Crawford, who fought last Saturday? What do you think that fight would have looked like?
Floyd Mayweather's an all-time great. Terence Crawford, I think, will turn out to be an all-time great. It's a very hard fight to pick, and I think it would depend on at what moment in Mayweather's career and at what moment in Crawford's career are we talking about that taking place. Obviously, we just saw what would appear to be the showcase Terence Crawford performance. Would you call Corrales the showcase Floyd Mayweather performance? Would you call Pacquiao the showcase Floyd Mayweather performance? I mean, where would you place that marker? Because I believe Floyd became a little bit more of a banker and was a little bit more conservative as he went along. It became more and more clear that he could win that way against anybody. It became more and more clear that he built his audience not necessarily so much from the style of what he did in the ring as from the style of what he did on social media. That's a different formula than the one that Crawford is using. So I wouldn't want to pick that fight until I saw at what moment in their careers such a thing would take place. It's always dangerous to pick utterly hypothetical fights that are never going to take place except somewhere in your mind. And the example that I currently use to try to illustrate that, and you'll appreciate this, Sean, knowing what you know now about Tyson Fury, looking at Tyson Fury's body, looking at Tyson Fury's style, pick a heavyweight from the entire history of the sport who you think would go into the ring and beat Tyson Fury. I think that's very hard to do. People come up with, Lennox Lewis, Vitaly Klitschko, because yes, it has to be somebody big, but Tyson Fury's unique. There's never been another body exactly like that with the ability to place counter punches exactly where he wants to put them at exactly the moment he wants them to land. It's almost indescribable skill. So, as much as I want to say, Jack Dempsey weighed about 194 pounds. You can't pick Marciano, forget that. I remember a long time ago, and I may have already told you this story, but I went to dinner before a big fight one night with Emmanuel Stewart in Hard Rock Cafe there in the MGM Grand. And we were sitting at dinner, and I had heard and read some things about Emmanuel and what he was doing. And I said, Emmanuel, I've heard that you are working in the gym with Tyson Fury. And he said, yes, I am. I said, well, what in the world interests you about Tyson Fury? He looks to me like a clumsy, lumbering oaf. And Emmanuel put down his fork and looked at me and said, Jimbo, he will be the heavyweight champion of the world. And I promise you, there is absolutely no doubt he will be the heavyweight champion of the world. And in fact, he may turn out to be an unbeaten and unbeatable heavyweight champion of the world. And I'm thinking, this is a different language than what I expect. I said, why would you say that? He said, Jimbo, he's almost 7 feet tall, and his arms are longer than that profile suggests. And his first thought in the ring about everything is how to defend himself, not how to attack. He is by nature a backup counterpuncher. And oh, by the way, he's an extraordinarily accurate counterpuncher. At some point along the way, he's going to realize his height and weight and his natural athletic ability, and he's going to become a puncher too. And once he becomes a power puncher to go with all the other things I've just described, that's where I say he becomes an unbeaten and unbeatable heavyweight champion. Well, look what happened. Emmanuel's a genius. He was a genius. He knew everything about what he was talking about. And his prediction with regard to Fury turned out to be 100% on target, even though I walked away from that dinner shaking my head and thinking, what is he smoking? So the bottom line is, you have to understand that fighters change, they develop, they become different people as they go along. What is Crawford going to take away now from his beatdown of Errol Spence? Is he now going to say to himself, I'm a destroyer against everybody? Or is he going to say to himself, that was a person who was particularly susceptible to my counterpunching accuracy and power and ability because he thought he was the master of the fight, not me. Other opponents will now come in with a different point of view with regard to Terence Crawford.
And how interesting it is that he said once he discovers his power in Tyson Fury, he'll become the complete package, and it's his nephew, Sugar Hill Stewart, who provides those finishing touches for Emmanuel, right?
Well, that's all a part of Emmanuel's immense and matchless legacy. Everybody starts with, the guy who built Kronk Jim and the guy who gave us Tommy Hearns. All true. Look at his heavyweight record. Greatest heavyweight trainer of all time. And, people don't even begin to realize it until they think secondary part of his career, certain things fell into his lap. Look at the brilliance, by the way, of Lennox Lewis. Oliver McCall knocks out Lennox Lewis in London, and the first thing Lennox Lewis does is to fire Pepe Correa and hire Emmanuel Stewart, hiring the man who beat him, in effect. And look at what happened to his career from that point forward. You don't know the intelligence of the fighter until you watch the way he governs his career. And oh, by the way, Terence Crawford is brilliant. Let's see where he goes from here.